Okay, I'm going to do a series of videos focusing on a very simple character design that's geared for a complete beginner or children for character design. So let's start by going over just some very basic things. I'm in Blender. This is called the 3D window. Over on the side, this is called the outliner. This is where you find your properties. This area down here, you can resize these windows simply by clicking on the edge. The mouse will change. This area down below in the default view is a playback area. This is something that's used for animations. By and large, we're probably going to be ignoring that. So I'm going to just move it down so it's mostly out of the way. Now, when you open Blender, and I'm in 4.3, Blender 4.3 is the version I'm using right now, you will have a default cube that's in the scene. So this cube or this mesh can be manipulated, and I can do it a few different ways. On the side, there's these different buttons that allow you to work with it in different ways. So for example, if I select this, I get this gizmo that turns up that looks very similar to the one that's up here that allows me to move the object around. And I can move it on a specific axis, which is X, Y, or Z. Same thing happens here. I've got a rotate tool, so I can rotate this in this way by simply clicking on or selecting the different circles within this within the rotation gizmo. Same thing here. I've got this tool, which is a scaling tool, so I can scale it on a specific axis. Now, here's a little trick. I'm going to put the cube back to how it was. I'm going to push Control, hold Control down on my keyboard, and I'm going to push Z a few times. And that's going to eventually get the cube back to where it started. So now if I go back and try to scale this, I can scale it specifically on the X or the Y or the Z or whatever I see fits. So that's something to play around with. Now, all these things I just did can be done in different ways as well. For example, if I've got this cube selected, and you can see that it's selected because of the orange outline, if I push G on my keyboard, I can grab it and move it around in a more free manner. Same thing with scaling. I pushed S, or if I decide to rotate it, I can push R, and I can sort of rotate it freely. Now the problem with that in 3D space, sometimes that doesn't move in the way you want. So I'm going to Control Z a few times, put it back where it was. And I can do the same kind of thing that I just did. If I want to grab this and move it just side to side, I can push the letter Y, and it's moving side to side and only side to side. And I made that decision by looking at the gizmo up here. So if I want to move it up, I can grab and push Z and move it. And the same exact thing applies to scaling and rotating. If I want to rotate it in just one way, I can rotate on X, and it'll only move this way. Scaling likewise, S, Z, and it'll only squish that way. I'm going to stop there, and in a minute we'll come back and talk about doing the same type of thing in edit mode.